One of the most exciting features that we've launched with these spring AFS updates is the new feature called AFS AccuTurn. So hands-free guidance around the turn. So this increases your productivity levels, reduces operator fatigue, but most of all, it ensures that the implement is square coming into that field at all times. So no longer do you have curved rows towards the end, or as you try to get on that guidance line, the first time you may have a weave or trying to get on that line, there could be a little bit of a curve, and all this translates into lost yield for your operation. So AFS AccuTurn really allows you to make sure that implement's square and get the most from your operation. So the first thing we need to do to verify that we can use AccuTurn is we need to make sure that we've either talked to our Case IH dealer and purchased the unlock or our display is already unlocked. So we can verify this, or we can get our serial number of the display to our dealer by going to Toolbox, then over to Activate, and you'll see we now have AccuTurn temporarily unlocked for 90 days. So the next step is we go to A-Turn under Toolbox still, and we're going to turn AccuTurn on. So we have a couple different triggers here. We'll talk about this in the coming segments. And then we also have turn early, turn late, auto speed, implement compensation, swaths to skip, AccuTurn minimum radius. So on this screen, you want to select the correct trigger for your operation. So the turn early, turn late, just keep in mind that if it's a negative, we're going to start our turn earlier, and if it's positive, we're going to start our turn later. So we recommend leaving this at 0 to begin with and fine-tuning as your operation sees fit. Implement compensation is if you have an implement that sometimes doesn't get perfectly square coming into the field, you need to fine-tune that. What we're actually going to do, if we look at the help here, is this is going to verify and ensure that our implement is coming in exactly square into the field. So it squares this up right at the last second, which will ensure a proper square implement into our operation. Auto speed. So auto speed, when we set the auto speed to on, this is going to build the turn based on our speed that we are currently going in the field. So if we slow down, it's going to tell us it's going to build the turn slower. So you can either turn this on or off. Just keep in mind that as you change speeds, your turns will change as well. We can turn this off, and then this is going to give us a manual speed window, and that's going to allow us to designate a speed that we're always going to build that turn at. So for our example here, this is 5 miles an hour. I'm going to turn auto speed back on, demonstrate how that works. Swaths to skip. So if we're in maybe doing ripping, or we need to do a couple skip passes, we can go ahead and up here and designate what is our amount that we want to skip each time. AccuTurn minimum radius is what is the minimum radius of our tractor implement combination to verify that we're not going to damage anything or potentially destroy or cause any liability there. So what we want to do is we want to set this AccuTurn minimum radius to the smallest amount to get the best performance, however not too small that we damage either the tractor or the implement. So work with your dealer and the proper way to set this up. However, you can start at a higher number. So for example, if we were pulling an air cart, we wouldn't want to start at 18 feet. Maybe we're going to set this to 30 originally, and then we can work our way down, watching the implement, watching the tractor, each subsequent turn, to make sure that there's no damage that could possibly occur. So I'm now going to set this back to 18 for demonstration purposes. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the AccuTurn operation or the user-defined window onto a run screen or our left-hand area up here. So the way I accomplish this is I go over to Layout, and then we see here, so I have left-hand area. You cannot change a default layout, so you'll have to create a new name or a new layout. I've done A for AccuTurn for this example, and then we're going to go down and we're going to select AccuTurn 1x2. So after I select AccuTurn 1x2, you'll see now I have the AccuTurn user-defined window up here. So if I click on Settings, it automatically takes me to where I was before. And you'll notice that all these windows are grayed out. That's because none of these windows become present or that you can access until you're engaged on auto guidance. So now that I'm engaged on auto guidance, you'll see that I can now select these windows. I can enable them, I can turn them off. So starting with the top here, this is the direction that I'm going to turn. So black means that is the direction of travel. So right now I just changed it so my turn begins to the left. Turn now is for it's still an automatic turn, however that's not driven off of a trigger. That's the user prompting, this is when I would like to begin the turn. So when you press that, it's going to start the turn. Auto puts it in automatic mode. You'll notice when I pressed that earlier, we got a pop-up that said implement may travel outside of the boundary. So it's smart enough to let you know that your implement may cross outside the boundary. So if you have fences, this could be an issue, but if it's just neighboring land, neighboring field, that's all right. So now on to my modes of operation. So if I go back to my settings window here, you'll see our auto turn trigger. So we have three options. We have headland, outer boundary, and end of swath. Case IH Marketing's recommendation is to use headland where possible because that's where the true logic is being built into. So with the headland AccuTurn trigger, the goal is to keep the implement between the inner boundary and the outer boundary. So the outer boundary, it's going to trigger off of my outer boundary. So what happens is when I get to that outer boundary, then it's going to begin to turn. So my implement and tractor will actually cross outside of my outer boundary. So if this is an issue or this damage could occur, we recommend that you not use this outer boundary trigger. And the final one is end of swath. So end of swath works great in square fields, rectangular fields. And what it does is I created a guidance line, and as I'm engaged on that guidance line, when I press the turn now feature, it's going to say next time through that field, this is where I should begin the turn. So in order for end of swath to work, we need to have auto on and then use the turn now feature, and then it's going to automatically trigger off of that. So as you can see, AFS AccuTurn has many benefits to your operation. This can be used on any AFS Pro 700, 372, NAV2, NAV3 machine, really providing a lot of functionality and increased performance for your operation.